Jake Moody will kick off. Michigan won the toss and deferred. So Michigan State elected to take the ball. And it comes down to Jeremy Bernard, their speedy slot receiver. They swing it out wide. Cornelius Johnson lost the football, and the Spartans have it.
I'm gonna keep this. I have the buffet big in my opening hand against Druid. Cool. This is my power call.
I see broadcast.
Spice. Gimme that. Spice. My point is Taylor Swift. What is she doing here instead of working on her new album? Okay, so Avenge. Night of Anointment. No, I'll Ram Commander. Yeah.
Let the dead rest. The light shall conquer. All it takes is love, care, and death.
Okay, so
Reporting
1,
to duty.
2,
No spice over here.
3.
Let the dead rest.
So we have our quest completion ready.
Shall conquer. Already there.
Try not to put Ram Commander in every deck challenge if possible. I mean, I do like me a Ram Commander. That much is certainly true. So we're gonna be able to play our reward on 6. We want to ensure that we don't complete and potentially leave it vulnerable to. Make sure we completely vulnerable to a Theatar.
You gotta be scrappy with traps.
Okay, so this is our plan. We're gonna play this. Get to 2 out of 3. 0 power, send in the troops.
Let the dead rest.
They could theoretically not kill anything, and then I have no room. Play my reward. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Aha. Yep. Okay, so we will play Recruit.
Reporting for duty.
Completes the quest. We'll play Cariel.
Let the dead rest. The light shall conquer.
That is. obviously very strong.
The light shall conquer.
Okay, we're gonna do.
All I can aid. Reporting for duty.
Don't devour me, please. Just another scaling, yeah. That would suck. Why did you do what? Why didn't you just devour her? Oh, you needed it to be in the end. Okay. Huh?
Mount up. Reporting for duty. To battle. To battle. Reporting for duty.
I was hoping to get Judgment Justice there. Oh, now they don't have to feel like your power punch. Oh. Oh. Okay. The good news is we can still kill this.
I'm on the case.
So, yeah, I will play Bridge, Hero Power,
Reporting for duty.
Jury Duty. Do I just go face? I guess if I just kill this, I die if I just go face. So yeah, we should kill this. Like they're drawing with cards. If they find the other Devour or like Sylvanas or something to kill this, we can trade. They are indeed some big dudes.
All it takes is love.
Sure. Yeah, and I'm very glad that I killed that one I did. Okay. Oh yeah, the Sky Talon. Just leave this alive and just 20 for them. I believe that is correct. I think Sky Talon, kill this, hit them for. All right, look at my recruits. They have been through much more than basic training.
This must be the way.
We can't just see the power. together by laws. I've come too far to turn back.
I'm in the mood to do some chat logs or some unban things. Stop feeding. I was capping, I guess. That doesn't sound like you. That doesn't sound so genuine. Are you boosted? Always when I watch you, you food so hard. You feed. You can't make the shit up, man. I've been playing for so long, my eyes. I'm starting to see stuff. I didn't know his playstyle. I will not say any annoying again. Yeah, you won't, because you're just gonna say ban. Don't worry, man. Stop inting. Sorry, I love Baus. I don't love you. Bye-bye. Lul Zion banned. I am not torturing myself watching you play another hero. Dude, okay. You're talking as if it's like torturing yourself. Really? It's not that bad to watch me play other champions. Like, it's not that bad. You suck. Haha. I banned it. It's a rare Baus ban. All of my bans are legit. So I'm gonna deny it. Despite all this, I am not a bad person, and I want you to know your stream is the only thing that brings me joy in my sad life. I'm gonna deny you. I deny him. Bro, they hired a lawyer to write the message for him. It was a real good unban request. His crime was still enough for him to be permanently put into jail. I have no face right now, so it's not as easy. Yeah, I think I'm dead. This is typical Ghost versus Sion. Ghost is so OP, man. I hate the summoner spell. Might get a solo kill here if he greets. Oh wow, what is this? 115 AD? Where is he getting all the AD from? Why does he have so much AD? Oh no, I should not have died there. I should not have died. That's a pretty rough start. I mean, it's not much to do with Olaf lane. It's just rougher. The game, you're always gonna lose no matter what you do. So you just gonna take the beating and then you outscale him. That's what I'm gonna hope for here. I'll die a few more times for sure. Ah, he's big. Get him with the slow and then kill him with the passive. Let's fucking go, baby. Let's go, baby. Oh, Karma pushes the wave when he's gonna push into me. I have a noob on my mid laner. And look at this, look at this. Look at her. Fuck it up so bad. Nice, it's a fucking freeze. All is of course, I don't mind laning versus her at all. Yeah, so what's the plan, Karma? What was your plan here? Oh man, she wins. Can I get back my lane, please? Just let it push into my lane so I can lane. No, I might just take your cannon. No, because I need to reach my cannon. Look, this all gets messed up because you have to push my wave. Everything is messed up then. I gotta catch this. This guy's popping off. Guys, I can't do anything. Don't say ult question mark. I can't do that. My ulti, it doesn't deal damage. Melee range, it doesn't deal damage. It deals as much as an auto attack. More bladings though. Don't mind if I do. What is the meaning of this, Lannister? Not bad, not bad. I think I... What I was gonna say is I think I start beating the Olaf now. Wow, how is he just dealing so much damage in my... Oh, he has 6 kills. I guess it makes sense that his axe is dealing like 250 damage then. Nice. Got it. I got it. Way more or less expectable is doing a Q, not from a bush, but from a fog of war spot. So it is one corner here, a corner here, a corner here. There's a lot of corners, right? What's he even doing there? What? Is Ezreal gonna die again? I'm a Ezreal hunter this game. Yeah, that's penalty. Don't give him the reset. Okay. What the both? Oh, nice, nice. Don't fuck with me, Ezreal. Don't fuck with me. No, I will hit him with this ulti. And that should be a kill. Kinda ulted in a way where I would hit him even if he... So if you go from here towards here, and he's here, he's not gonna ulti down because nobody ever does that in my experience. So he's always gonna ulti like this. Then I ulti and kinda aim in the middle of those two areas. So I hit him. It's kind of a mad life with Sion ulti. Oh boy! What? You're dying. Wait, where's my damage? Okay, he has some armor items. Hey, you're dying, Olaf. You're dying. Ace! Here we go. Good team fight, everybody. Nobody will care that I gone ace. Nobody gives a single shit because I lost one singular cannon. Nobody cares that I did well in the team fight. I killed some people. No. Nice. Double. Triple. Triple! Lean. I might get positive KDA this game, guys. I might actually get positive KDA. Oh my god, it's the first time today. I haven't got positive yet today. It's been 7 hours and I've only went negative. Can we make a positive game? Nah. Nah, like they're all one! They're all one! Kill them! Kill them! Look at them! The card doesn't do anything! Yeah, I might come here. Oh. Come here, Nami! Shit! I didn't pick up a crit! My bad, man, my bad. These guys are dying. They're dying. Oh, what? I only got one hit. GG! That should count as a kill for me, man. I would've got positive KDA if I killed a Nami and it counted. Yeah, nice. What is that? An entire day. Hey, not single positive KD. Holy. At the most damage, of course. It is as to be expected when you have a boost on the team. The gaming gold, the next faker is what they call it. It's what they say on the street.
I pick up my typical 10 repels, pick up the counter TM, which is free, grab 2 Pokedolls, and then I head to the top floor. By the way, if I'm going to buy 3 vitamins, I'm going to have to grab 1 additional TM. In this case, I pick up the TM for Ice Beam because it takes the least number of clicks, and then I sell it so that I can buy 3 vitamins. In this case, because Gengar is so fast, I pick up Calcium because this will improve both its special attack and special defense. They're a unified stat in Generation 1. Because I haven't caught a Flower yet in Pokemon Yellow, I have to pick up a Doduo here, which takes some time, and then I fly back to Celadon City. Now, I'm going to make a choice here, which is to go to Saffron City immediately to pick up the TM for Psychic. When I was making this video, I talked with Speedrunner0218, who was the victor of my Porygon Race challenge back in March. He also made a Gengar video in Pokemon Yellow, and so we discussed strategies as to the best way to route Gengar. I have to give him credit because he gave me a lot of ideas about how to do this playthrough, but one thing that he didn't choose to do was grab Psychic as early as I want to get it. I'm doing this specifically because having this move means that I'll have super effective damage against the Ghastlies in Pokemon Tower, which are following. They're known for being very trolly because they can use Lick to paralyze you and then Confuse Ray to confuse you. Parafusion is just awful and I want to avoid it today at all costs. However, before I fight the Ghastlies, I have to fight the rival. Now, let's reflect on Gengar's moveset as it stands right now. I've taught Thunderbolt, Hypnosis, Psychic, and Body Slam. At this point, I'm feeling really good about this moveset, and I'm not sure I'm even going to need any new moves throughout the entire playthrough. These moves give Gengar good answers to all the rivals' Pokemon, and then against the Ghastly, I'm able to one-hit all of them. At the top of the tower, Gengar defeats Jesse and James, and at the end of this fight, it levels up to level 33. Okay, so that'll be relevant later when we compare this with Pokemon Red. I wake up the Snorlax, pick up a rare candy, grab the PP up, this will be useful for Psychic, and then I head into the Safari Zone. Here I collect 3 optional items, which are very standard in my playthroughs: the Carbos, the Full Restore, and the Protein. After that, I teach Squirrel Surf, use the vitamins, and then dig back to Celadon City. Now I head to Erica's gym, and I'm going to only choose to fight the one mandatory trainer here with an Execute. And at this point, I should probably talk about Hypnosis, because most of you are going to be very worried now that it's on my moveset, because I'm known for over-relying on this move, should we say, and producing very bad results for the Pokemon that I'm running as a consequence. While Generation 1 Sleep is very broken, it can last an incredibly long time, and the Pokemon doesn't get a chance to attack the turn it wakes up. This is a double-edged sword for Gengar, because Hypnosis only has 60% accuracy, and believe me, in these games, it feels like 25% accuracy. I solemnly swear not to overuse this move today. Do not worry, I'm slowly learning the lesson that this is not a good move. In this case, Hypnosis is actually useful, because this Execute knows Hypnosis as well, and this Cool Trainer also has good AI, so she's only going to use either Hypnosis or Reflect because Gengar is a poison type. So I want to make sure that I get Hypnosis first. If I was put to sleep, a lot of time would be wasted with the Execute just spamming Reflect over and over and me waiting to wake up. After I put it to sleep, I knock it out, and now I can face Erica. She leads with Tangela, and this thing is honestly very bulky. However, Psychic does nice damage, and I was surprised by this. The Vine Monster strikes back with Vine Whip, and it does so little. Then, after surviving my second Psychic, Erica uses a Super Potion, which is very rare for her in Yellow, and this really delays things because I need to use 2 more Psychics to knock it out. So I only have 2 PP left for her following 2 Pokemon. Luckily, in Generation 1, most Grass types are paired with the Poison type, and in the case of Weepinbell and Gloom, this is the case. So Psychic's super effective, and I knock a Weepinbell out in 1 hit. Okay, it's time for the Gloom. I roll Psychic again, and in this case, it doesn't do quite enough damage. If you're really attentive, you'll notice that the Weepinbell and the Gloom have the same special stat. So yeah, I just rolled bad damage this time. Erica uses a Super Potion. I have to use Body Slam because I'm out of Psychic PP. It doesn't do quite enough, and then Gloom paralyzes Gengar. However, she doesn't have a good option now. Like, Sleep is off the table now because I'm paralyzed, and it can only use Petal Dance or Acid. It goes for the former, but Paralysis doesn't prevent me from moving, so that's it. I've defeated her. Gengar clocks in with a time of 25 minutes and 43 seconds against Erica. However, will the Gengar have maintained its lead in Pokemon Yellow over Pokemon Red? Let's find out. One difference between the 2 games is that in the Pokemon Fan Club, I can use Dig to head directly back to Cerulean City. After all, there's no Squirtle to pick up in Pokemon Red. I grab the bike, teach Thunderbolt, and then head out onto the route, hoping that the Wrapping Last won't slow me down. After all, she's the same between both games. In this case, the Oddish does go for Stun Spore, but luckily it misses, so Gengar gets past the first Oddish without any issues. However, the second one could paralyze me, but in this case it just uses Absorb, and so that's a quick victory for me. The Pokemaniac's Cubone is similar, doing a lot of damage, but not enough to knock me out, and then I Thunderbolt the Slowpoke for an easy win. Now it's time for the Self-Destructing Hiker. Funnily enough, all of his rocks, no rock throw, so they can actually deal damage to Gengar. I forgot this when going into the fight, so I didn't feel, and as a result, I get taken to orange by the first Geodude. That's not good. However, the second one just tries to tackle and I knock it out with a second Nightshade, and then the Graveler self-destructs, so that's an easy victory for the red Gengar. And with it, it's made it to the mid-game. Now in Red and Blue, I think that going into the Rocket Hideout is almost always a waste of time. So I skip it, head straight to the department store, and I still buy Calcium here. I pick up Psychic, teach it to Gengar, and then I face the rival in Pokemon Tower. Now I mentioned on the previous rival fight that I wasn't sure which team was stronger, the team in Yellow or the team in Red, but in this case, the team in Red is significantly stronger than the team in Yellow. After all, in the place of Shellder, he has Gyarados, which has Hydro Pump. Yeah, that thing's a beast. He also has Kadabra with Confusion, Execute, which has Hypnosis, so it could be very annoying. Also, his Pidgeotto has Sand Attack still, However, because Gengar's moveset, it's not going to struggle against any of these Pokemon, and I managed to defeat him with ease. Now I want to remind everyone about my Nidoran race with Vanman, where he played Pokemon Red and I played Pokemon Yellow. Now in that video, I tried to be as exhaustive as possible, discussing major differences between Pokemon Yellow and Pokemon Red. However, I realize now that I missed one of them, and that's the fact that you have to fight more trainers on the top floor of Pokemon Tower. I think I mentioned this, but I didn't mention why this is important. Because in Pokemon Red, you actually gain more experience through all these battles, which are mandatory. I mentioned that in Pokemon Yellow, Gengar is level 33 after defeating Jesse and James at the top of the tower, but after defeating all the mandatory trainers here in Pokemon Red, Gengar is level 34. So now it has 1 additional
Shall I turn in my badge and rifle as well?
Okay, so that'll be relevant later when we compare this with Pokemon Red. I wake up the Snorlax, pick up a rare candy, grab the PP up, this will be useful for Psychic, and then I head into the Safari Zone. Here I collect 3 optional items.
I don't love you.
Level advantage over the Pokemon Yellow Gengar. However, it did have to invest slightly more time doing that because there were more battles. With the tower to the way, I followed the same routing that I did with Yellow, and all that leads me to Erica's gym. I defeat the mandatory Execute Trainer as well, and now I'm ready to take on the Grassmaster. Her team in Pokemon Red is significantly different from her team in Pokemon Yellow. She has final evolved Pokemon here, however, they're lower levels. As a result, their stats are very comparable between the two games, meaning there isn't really much of a difference between Erica in Yellow and Erica in Red. It can be really annoying for Victory Bell to get crits with Razor Leaf in this game, however, today it doesn't matter because Gengar is going to sweep easily with Psychic. In this case, the fact that her Tangela is a significantly lower level makes things faster for Gengar. It is the first instance where we see a Pokemon using a trapping move that hits Gengar. Well, it doesn't hit Gengar, it just like traps Gengar, wastes time, and then I knock it out with the second Psychic. After that, it's time for Vileplume, and this sprite, please, just this sprite is so bad. Oh, I hate it. After that, I use Psychic, and the Vileplume survives, just like the Gloom did in Pokemon Yellow. However, I haven't run out of PP in this case, and I knock it out on the next turn. Gengar levels up to level 35, and then I've defeated Erica. It gets a time of 25 minutes and 23 seconds. So how does that compare? Well, the Pokemon Red Gengar is now 20 seconds faster than the Pokemon Yellow Gengar. That is a 32-second swing in this section of the game. One factor leading to this discrepancy is that in Yellow I can't dig out of the Poke Fan Club and I have to pick up Squirtle, so there's some lost time there. I also did have to catch my Flyer in Pokemon Yellow, which I didn't have to do in Pokemon Red. So right now it feels like this race is very back and forth, like they're in lockstep with each other. There haven't been any major hurdles for either of them to face. However, that's all going to change very soon, because next is Koga. And I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that in Pokemon Red, I think that the jugglers in his gym are actually stronger than Koga. Like, they have psychic types that are pretty tanky, like the Drowsy are just hard to knock out. Luckily, I'm able to get through all of them with Gengar and move on to Koga himself. So let's go over his team in Pokemon Red. Yeah, they're all poison types in this case. He's got a Coughing, a Muck, another Coughing, and a Wheezing. Probably the scariest move on this entire team is his Wheezing self-destruct, especially in a solo challenge where if it self-destructs, you basically lose. But in this case, that's a normal move, so it can't even hit Gengar. My Psychic doesn't knock the Muck out in one hit, but then its best move is just Sludge. And yeah, Gengar takes like almost no damage from this. I knock it out on the next turn, level up to level 37, knock the Coughing out in one hit, and now it's time for Wheezing. I go for Psychic. It doesn't quite KO. Taking it to orange health, and then Koga uses self-destruct. Thank you so much for speeding up that victory for me. So I defeat Koga like a minute and 20 seconds after I defeat Erica. Gengar in Pokemon Red gets a time of 26 minutes and 45 seconds. Well, that was a dominant performance for Gengar in Pokemon Red, but it's going to be different in Yellow. After all, Koga is probably the trainer that was changed the most between these two games. Because I'm anticipating him being quite powerful, after all of his Bug-type Pokemon have Psychic moves in this game, I use Rare Candies before the fight, leveling Gengar up to level 40 over the next damage rounding threshold. Alright, I hope that this is going to be enough. Now, let's do it. I'm hoping for a one-hit against his first Venonat. I use Psychic, and it gets it due to a critical hit. Alright, I'm not sure if that's inspiring, or if I'm more concerned about his following Venonats. I go for Psychic against the second one, crossing my fingers again, and it gets the KO. No critical hit this time. Alright, that's good. Will the third one be a one-hit as well? Well, yes it will, but because of a critical hit. Alright, this is pretty lucky. Last is Venomoth, and this Pokemon's typing is Halloween themed, so it's going to be hard for Gengar to deal with. I go for Psychic, it does more than half, and then Venomoth strikes back with its own Psychic, which does about half to Gengar. Okay, I'm going to be able to knock it out the next turn, so that's it. Koga actually ended up being easy. But I'm glad I used the Rare Candies here. That probably gave me the 2-shot on the Venomoth and the 1-shot on the Venonat, at least the second one. So Gengar gets a time of 27 minutes and 38 seconds in Pokemon Yellow. Comparing these times, it's clear that the Red Gengar is starting to get an advantage. It's now 53 seconds faster than the Yellow Gengar. Now, if you're familiar with my Pokemon Yellow playthroughs, you'll think that there's a choice here. Do I go to Sylph or do I surf to Cinnabar Island? But in Pokemon Red, that really isn't the case. I have to obtain Lapras to use Surf. Yes, I could pick up a Good Rod and then catch myself a surfing Pokemon and then surf to Cinnabar Island, but all of that is going to waste extra time. So instead, I'm going to head to Sylph next and try and pick up Lapras. And that means I have to defeat the rival. However, Gengar's just under a damage rounding threshold. When it levels up to level 38, I'm probably going to be doing enough damage. I'm hopeful about that fight. On the 10th floor, I face him the Choke Rocket. After all, I really want the Carbos and Rare Candy that he's blocking. After that, I go downstairs, pick up the Calcium, and then I face the Arbok Rocket, and the experience from this fight levels Gengar up to level 38. After that, I grab the card key, and now I'm ready to face the rival. He leads with Pidgeot. Honestly, its moveset is pretty awful. I just hope I don't get hit by Sand Attack. I use Thunderbolt, and it takes it out in one hit. Okay, that's good. Next is Execute. Now, because he has good AI, this thing is only going to use Reflect, so I really don't need to be worried here. I go for Body Slam, it does half with the critical hit. Execute sets up Reflect, and I'll just mention here that this doesn't actually applied to the opponent's entire team in Generation 1. It only boosts the defense of the Pokemon that's currently on the field. When it switches out, the Reflect is gone. I get another critical hit with Body Slam, knocking the Execute out, and then Gyarados hits the field. Obviously here, Thunderbolt does 4 times damage, so I take it out in a single hit, and then Alakazam comes out. Okay, I have to be very careful against it, because its Side Beam is going to do so much damage to Gengar. I try for Hypnosis to put it to sleep so I can avoid damage entirely. However, it strikes back with a Side Beam, gets a critical hit, and does so much. It also confused me. Are you kidding? This is going to be a lot.
With my strategy, you can't lose. Just pay attention and follow my lead.
Welcome to Summoner's Rift.
I love knowing my plan's in motion.
30 seconds until minions spawn.
With Labrys's power,
Minions have spawned.
if I don't give my all, the others never will. I chose Labrys as much as it chose me. My strategies succeed every time.
An ally has been slain.
Watch closely. Labrys may be strong, but it needs me.
It's just you and me, Brooke.
Been slain. Enemy double kill.
This time I must be perfect.
Now I can bat around the body.
dude. What the fuck?
Most strategies succeed every time.
It's just me.
Progress may be strong, but it needs me.
Gengar hits itself and Alakazam finishes me off on the next turn. On my next fight, Hypnosis works and it puts the Alakazam to sleep. I go for Body Slam next and it does more than half. Alright, that makes me think maybe I should have just gone for Body Slam right away and tried to tank one Psybeam. I take it out on the next turn, and then he sends in his Ace Charizard. Obviously, Thunderbolt is super effective here, so I use it and I hope for the one hit, but it doesn't quite get it. However, Charizard can only hit me with Ember. It does so little and I knock it out on the next turn. The prize for that fight is Lapras. I pick it up and then I make quick work of the following Rocket and Giovanni. Now I can surf to Cinnabar Island, but that won't save the most time. Instead, I want to go to Copycat's house and pick up Mimic and then fight Sabrina. After all, once I defeat her, I won't need to come back to Saffron City again. In Pokemon Red, she leads with Kadabra. Overall, her team is quite different. She has 4 Pokemon instead of 3, but they're all lower levels, which means I'm going to outspeed everything, even the Alakazam. My Gengar has 132 speed, by the way, and this wouldn't outspeed Sabrina's Alakazam in Pokemon Yellow, so I'll need to be a higher level for that fight. But in this case, this speed is more than enough. I make it through her first 3 team members without taking any damage. Alright, this is really promising. I use Body Slam, it does more than half to Alakazam, and then it strikes back with Psybeam. Oh my, that did so much damage. Are you kidding me? Oh, it takes Gengar out. Alright, so that was a critical hit. She's not going to get that lucky in the next fight. Well, actually, I'm not going to get that lucky. I'm actually just going to play bad. I accidentally use Thunderbolt on the Kadabra, and it does less than half. I switch to Body Slam, but that means Gengar's taken almost half damage by the time Mr. Mime comes out. My first Body Slam does half, Mr. Mime sets a barrier, and then my next one doesn't knock it out. As a result, it gets confusion. This takes Gengar down to orange health before Venomoth hits the field. This is really not going well. Luckily, my Psychic takes this thing out in a single... Oh, it doesn't. The Venomoth survives. Are you kidding me? At least Serena uses a Hyper Potion instead, and then I knock it out on the next turn. Next is Alakazam, and this is a place where Hypnosis can be useful. I think that just going for Body Slam right away, if I wasn't so heavily damaged, would have been the better choice. But in this case, since my Gengar's pretty bruised and she has good AI, I think that this is the only path to victory. With it put to sleep, I'm able to take it out over the next 2 turns with Body Slam and earn myself the Marsh Badge. Finally, it's time to surf to Cinnabar Island. In Pokemon Mansion, I skip the optional vitamins, only picking up the Carbos on my way, and then I grab the 2 rare candies as well as the secret key and dig out. Now it's time for Blaine. So let's put on some music that's just a little bit like happy or something. Definitely no gym leader music for this fight, because Blaine in Red and Blue is quite possibly the worst gym leader in the entire game. No, like he is definitely the worst gym leader in the entire game. Like Giovanni gives him a run for his money, but it's not close. This guy is just terrible. Because he has good AI, his Growlithe is only going to spam Agility against Gengar. Also, Blaine loves using Super Potions, which he does here, and then I knock the Growlithe out on the next turn. When he does next, the only move it could hit me with would be Fire Spin, but like that's not going to do much because Gengar has awesome special. I take it out in a single critical hit, and then Rapidash is next. Okay, let's watch this thing use Fire Spin against me. And then after the first hit, Blaine uses 2 Super Potions. Wonderful job. I knock the Rapidash out, and last is Arcanine. So it could actually do a bit of damage because it has Fire Blast, but instead it uses Ember. Wonderful job. Because of the amount of damage I'm dealing to it, it could use Fire Blast, but in this case it doesn't, and I just take it out with my 3rd Thunderbolt. So yeah, well done, Blaine. So the red Gengar is finishing this fight at 33 minutes and 52 seconds. This is an incredible time for this section of the game. So will Gengar and Pokemon Yellow be able to catch up? In this case, I actually do have to make the choice: do I go to Cinnabar Island or do I go to Sylph? In this case, I choose to go to Sylph next, just because there's some experience here, and Blaine in Pokemon Yellow is very challenging. He is not the pushover that we just witnessed in Pokemon Red. After collecting all the vitamins and defeating the Arbok trainer, Gengar is level 41. So is this going to be enough to defeat the rival here? Well, in Pokemon Yellow, I think that he's actually going to be easier for Gengar to defeat, and that's just because his Kadabra has not yet evolved into an Alakazam. However, he does start with Sand Slash, and this thing is going to become a problem later on when it gets Earthquake. But right now, its only move that can actually damage us is Poison Sting, and it could be really annoying with Sand Attack. I'm just hoping that it doesn't use that. In this case, it uses Swift, that fails, and then I knock it out on the second turn. I use Thunderbolt against Cloyster, and it knocks it out in a single hit, and next is Magneton. I really wanted to avoid being paralyzed here. I'm forgetting that it doesn't have Thunder Wave, so I put it to sleep, and then I knock it out over the next 3 turns with Psychic, followed by 2 Thunderbolts. Next is Kadabra. Gengar outspeeds and knocks it out in 1 hit with Body Slam. Okay, so this is looking like a done deal. All that's left is Flareon. In this game, the Dark type doesn't exist, so Bite's a normal type move. That means the only things it can hit us with are Ember, Sand Attack, and Fire Spin, and I'm not very worried about those. I knock it out, and that's that. There's a little bit of extra experience with Yellow Gengar here because I have to defeat Jesse and James, and after that I quickly sweep through Giovanni's team. I pick up Mimic next, and then head to Sabrina's gym. Okay, let's take her on. She leads with Abra, and it's lucky I have Body Slam because I'm able to take it out in a single hit. That way I avoid its flash, and I can move on to the Kadabra with my accuracy intact. I wasn't sure that Gengar was going to 1-hit the Kadabra, but in this case, I get a lucky critical hit, and I knock it out in 1 turn. Okay, that's good. Next is Alakazam. Now I should mention here that this thing is 7 levels higher than it is in Pokemon Red, and it also has Psychic, which it doesn't have in Red version. But to balance that out, Sabrina also doesn't have good AI, so she's just going to use random moves. My second Body Slam paralyzes, but this doesn't prevent Alakazam from hitting a Psychic, which does absolutely massive damage to Gengar, taking it to 11 hit points. That wasn't a critical hit. Now because she set up Reflect and Gengar has lower attack than it has special, I figured that using Thunderbolt now would be the best play. Unfortunately, it doesn't knock the Alakazam out, and it gets another Psychic, which knocks Gengar out. That is my first reset in Pokemon Yellow. Let's try this fight again. I knock the Abra out in a single hit, Kadabra's next, and this time it survives. But I'm lucky because Sabrina uses an X-Defend, and this doesn't save it for my second Body Slam. Okay, it's time for Alakazam again. I go for Body Slam, it does less than half, but it does get paralysis. Sabrina uses an X-Defend, I go for Body Slam again, taking it down to 1/3, and then she uses Psy Wave. This doesn't do very much. I take Alakazam down to a sliver, and then it uses Recover. That's really annoying. Maybe I'll get a critical hit. Well, I don't, but Alakazam's paralyzed, it can't move, and I knock it out as a result. So Gengar had a slightly bumpy Sabrina split in both games. I don't think it's truly inconsistent, but I do think it's a tiny bit random. So now I'm off to Cinnabar Island and Pokemon Mansion, where I once again skip the vitamins and head towards Blaine's gym. So I really need to talk about him in Yellow because he is so much better. First of all, he has 3 team members, but they're all fully evolved, giving them significantly better stats. Also, they're much higher levels. Blaine Stuff's Pokemon in red is level 48, but here his Arcanine is level 54. Additionally, they all have powerful fire moves, like Rapidash is the weakest with only Fire Spin, but I'm still worried. In this case, I'm using Psychic, even though it does less damage, just because it has a 33% chance to lower their opponent's special. If I do that, then I'll take less damage from his Fire-type moves. Unfortunately, Gengar hits itself twice in Confusion, and it's left with only 36 hit points when the Rapidash comes out. First turn against Rapidash, I hit myself, and then my Psychic hits, getting a critical hit, taking Rapidash down to orange health and lowering its special. Okay, that's nice. At least I'm not confused anymore. I knock it out, and Arcanine hits the field. So the only way I'm going to win now with my health this low is if I can get a Hypnosis and knock the Arcanine out over several turns. Unfortunately, Hypnosis misses, and Arcanine sets up Reflect. I go for Hypnosis again, it misses, and Arcanine uses Fire Blast. So that's it. In the next fight, I decide that it makes more sense to use Hypnosis early on in the battle so that I can get through the Ninetales with full health. The Rapidash isn't much of a threat because despite being a rapid Pokemon, it is not faster than Gengar. Like, Gengar has almost 160 speed, Rapidash only has 118. That thing's slow in comparison. I knock it out and move on to the Arcanine. I go for Psychic first turn, it lowers its special, and Blaine chooses Takedown. Good job. He's like inspired by his former self in red version or something there. I get a critical hit next turn, and then I knock the Arcanine out for a clean sweep without taking any damage. Sweet. So yeah, hard the first time, easy the second time. So after Sabrina and Blaine, the yellow Gengar has actually clawed back some time. It's now only 30 seconds behind the red Gengar. However, if you don't know these games, something very important is coming up next. For the red version Gengar, I have to face Giovanni, and he is probably worse than Blaine, at least against Gengar. I just want you to look over at his team right now. Like, the Rhyhorn and the Rhydon have no moves that can hit Gengar. Fissure cannot actually hit the opponent if the opponent is faster. In this case, the Rhydon has 53 speed, so there's no way that move is hitting basically any opponent. Also, both of the Nidos can only hit Gengar with Poison Sting. Yep. So the only Pokemon that really has a chance to even do damage to me is the Dugtrio. I go for Psychic, it doesn't do quite enough. It takes Dugtrio down to red health, but that means it gets a dig off. Oh gosh, I really...
Depending on where you grew up, the word Aurora may or may not have a specific association for you. When you grow up in Seattle, though, the word Aurora can really only be associated with one thing, which is this. We're going to talk about the past, the present, and the maybe more promising future of an archetypal Strode, and it's coming up next. This is City Nerd, weekly content on cities and transportation. Viewer suggested topics always encouraged, but this one's all me. Now, I've done 2 videos on Strodes in Las Vegas, but that's the Sun Belt, and well, what'd you expect? But this week I'm in Seattle, one of America's most progressive cities by reputation, and you just think they would know better. And full disclosure, I grew up in this neck of the woods, so this week is personal. So I'm not going to do the usual thing where I find a bunch of ridiculous stuff like billboards for personal injury attorneys and make fun of them. Although there were advertisements for personal injury attorneys in Seattle, they were just on the buses. I am going to take you on a tour of the corridor, and we're going to see some very dumb things, but today I really want to focus on real problems that affect people's everyday lives and what advocacy groups, public agencies, and elected officials are trying to do about it. And my hope here is that today's video can provide some lessons and maybe some inspiration for people who are looking to transform Strodes in their own cities. Okay, let's set this up with some historical background. Like a lot of Strodes, Aurora is a legacy state highway. I'm going to come back to this later in the video because it is really an important point. Aurora is State Route 99, and it was the major north-south route through the city of Seattle before Interstate 5 opened in the 1960s. Various parts of Aurora have existed for a long time as pre-automobile trade routes, but I'd put the birth of the Aurora we know today as 1932, the year the Aurora Bridge over the Ship Canal opened. This 1948 traffic flow map from an old civics textbook kind of illustrates how important Aurora was for most of the 20th century. There's no I-5 here. This other thick band to the east is Old Highway 522 or Lake City Way before I-5 got bulldozed through North Seattle. There's another important thing about this map. The city limits at the time only extended to 85th Street or a bit north, where today Seattle proper extends all the way to 145th. What this means is much of North Seattle urbanized as an unincorporated area with a hodgepodge of infrastructure and utility services. You still see this today with most streets north of 85th not having proper sidewalks or drainage. I'm going to come back to this when we tour Aurora because it's really important. So the mid-20th century was really the peak of American optimism around the transformative potential of the automobile, and a lot of Aurora reflects that. The street teemed with ostentatiously auto-oriented uses, some of which still exist today. Lots of motels sprang up and down Aurora, particularly when the World's Fair came to town in 1962. It's a testament to how little has changed on a lot of Aurora that so many of those motels still exist, although some of them maybe for more unsavory purposes than they were originally intended. Yeah, I observed a lot of, I don't know, activities along Aurora that I just didn't really want to film or subject you to, but I trust you can fill in the blanks. So let's set up the area. I'm going to start at 83rd, down by Green Lake.
Hit that jive jack, put it in your pocket till I get back. I'm going downtown to see a man, and I ain't got time to shake your hand. Hit that jive jack, put it in your pocket till I get back. Time and time waits for no man, and I ain't got time to shake your hand. Hit that jive jack, put it in your pocket till I get back. I'm going downtown to see a man, and I ain't got time to shake your hand. Hit that jive jack, put it in your pocket till I get back. Time and time waits for no man, and I ain't got time to shake your hand. Hit that jive jack, put it in your pocket till I get back. I'm going downtown to see a man, and I ain't got time to shake your hand. Hit that jive jack, put it in your pocket till I get back. Time and time waits for no man, and I ain't got time to shake your hand. Hit that jive jack, put it in your pocket till I get back. I'm going downtown to see a man, and I ain't got time to shake your hand. Hit that jive jack, put it in your pocket till I get back. Time and time waits for no man, and I ain't got time to shake your hand.
and I'm going to go all the way up to 160th into the city of Shoreline. This isn't to say that Aurora isn't problematic outside the study area. It is, but my time is limited, and I wanted to make sure I covered the strodiest part of the most strody strode in the city. So let's first confirm that what we're dealing with here is, in fact, a strode, which is a facility that attempts to provide the mobility functions of a highway while performing the commercial functions of an urban main street and kind of failing at both. Check. Now, the segment of Aurora we're looking at exists almost entirely within two designated urban villages, Bitter Lake and Aurora-Licton Springs. The urban village designation means these are intended to be compact, mixed-use neighborhoods that support walking and transit use and provide services and employment in close proximity to residences. And it's easy to say that we're failing to live up to the stated comprehensive plan designations, but let's look at something the region has put in place that should set Aurora up for future success. And that's the Rapid Ride E-Line. Rapid Ride is King County Metro's quasi-bus rapid transit service. It has wider stop spacing than a typical bus line, like about 5 blocks usually, and more bus priority treatment, so it's going to have a faster runtime and better reliability than a typical bus service. Also, real-time arrival information and more stop amenities than you'll usually see. The E-Line is the busiest bus route in the Puget Sound region, which meant a lot more before Northgate Link opened in late 2021, but it is really still pretty impressive. You could say at this point, the two busiest transit routes in the Puget Sound region run parallel through North Seattle, about a mile apart in some places, but they're very different services. Aurora generally has time-restricted bus lanes for the E-Line, meaning general traffic is allowed to use the lanes at off-peak times. And of course, the irony is, general traffic doesn't really seem to need or use the lanes if it isn't a peak time anyway, so just something to think about when we look to redesign. So here's a conundrum. Nothing about Aurora feels particularly transit-oriented. So why is the E-Line so busy? Well, it has priority when it needs it. It's pretty frequent, about every 3 to 5 minutes at peak times, every 5 to 10 minutes, most of the off-peak times. It touches a lot of strong housing and employment areas, and most importantly, I think, because of the way Aurora was designed as a state highway, it is a flat, straight line, which is not that common in Seattle. Never underestimate the power of expensive but very good urban geometry. The upshot here is the E-Line is an extremely democratic service for a very diverse population on a roadway that's kind of a mess otherwise. So let's talk about this. This is the intersection of Aurora and 85th, which is a bit of a strode-on-strode violence situation. Is it as egregious as what we looked at in suburban Las Vegas in terms of street cross-sections? No, it isn't, but suburban Las Vegas isn't even pretending to be an urban environment, but this is well inside of Seattle city limits. Keep in mind, we're pretty close to Green Lake here. It's not a cheap area to live, but even this segment of Aurora has all kinds of issues. Besides the fact that it isn't aesthetically pleasing by any standard, I always ask myself, if you were designing a major urban main street from scratch today, what would you want it to look like? Well, you probably wouldn't have long curb cuts with a bunch of head-in parking. I actually had to stop and wait for the bus to pass just so I could walk safely at this location. I'm not going to spend a lot of time ridiculing strode land uses today, but let's just talk about self-storage facilities really quick. I'll probably go deeper on this in a future video, but these are probably the quote-unquote densest land uses on Aurora, and a lot of them have been built fairly recently instead of, apartments within the same size of building envelope. You can tell most of these are new because, ironically, even though by definition they aren't really pedestrian-friendly land uses, they are the places where sidewalks have been rebuilt to newer city standards, so they're the most pleasant places to walk. Okay, let's move into the heart of the Aurora-Licton Springs urban village. This is the one place in the study area that really has the kind of main street building stock that hints at the street's potential, even though it isn't super well utilized now. There are other important pieces here: a bikeway that crosses at 100th and Oak Tree Village at the northeast corner, which might be getting ripe for another round of redevelopment. It isn't the bustling place it was maybe 20 years ago, but I do think the advertising they have on the EV charging stations is pretty funny. This is a good place to talk about pedestrian crossings. Signalized intersections along Aurora aren't that frequent, and for the most part, if there isn't a signalized intersection, you aren't going to get any kind of delineated pedestrian crossing. There are a couple pedestrian bridges, which are not really anything you'd ever build today, including this one at 102nd, which got updated with some colorful art recently. In my professional life, prior to being a YouTuber, I've advocated for pedestrian crossing spacing standards to ensure there are appropriate crossing treatments at good frequency, particularly in transit-heavy Main Street contexts, but you still don't see these kinds of standards much. All I'm saying is people are going to cross where they want to cross on streets like this, and the street design should account for what people actually do and not vice versa. Okay, let's move north of 110th, where we're in kind of a transition zone between the Licton Springs and Bitter Lake urban villages. This is where Aurora and the E-Line pass through the Evergreen Washelley Cemetery, which dates from 1885. I've had people ask me to do a video on urban cemeteries, and yeah, there's probably some sense in which it's a worse land use than a golf course, but I'm not going there. And no, probably not the busiest stop on the E-Line. The Bitter Lake urban village starts coming into focus once you get north of 115th. Self-storage oriented transit, big box stores, lots of quality lodging establishments, but also bougie grocery stores and weird, maybe high-end used car dealerships. It's just very eclectic. There's an old pedestrian overcrossing right at 130th. Pretty useless today since there's actually a crosswalk on this leg of the intersection, but the most notable feature once we get to this section is we're well into the north end of Seattle proper now, so sidewalks are few and far between. And look, I understand that sidewalk infill is sometimes cost prohibitive because of topography, or it's a low priority area because there's nowhere to walk in the first place, but come on, this area is pancake flat. There's a lot of retail and restaurants that people could walk to if it was safe and comfortable, and obviously people do walk to those places regardless. It's legitimately awful, and it's been this way for decades. Even at corners with signalized crossings, it's just a shoulder with really awful pavement condition. This has historically been one of those corridors where you'll find auto dealerships, which is generally not my favorite urban land use in the first place, but apparently this is what passes for acceptable loading and unloading operations on this segment of Aurora. You just roll into what's the only possible pedestrian zone and block the whole thing. I guess the city's okay with this? I did want to talk drive-thrus for a second though. There's always some fast food chain that's a big deal when it opens, and they go in and out of style. A lot of times it's this chain recently, but this location didn't have nearly the lines I've seen in a place like Vegas, even though it did have a double-lane drive-thru. I didn't understand it until I realized people in Seattle actually park and go into fast food joints. Regional differences. So the lack of any kind of mixed-use development along Aurora, despite it having the busiest bus line in the region, is honestly just crazy. But let's take a moment to head less than a quarter mile west to Linden Avenue, which is part of a long greenway that's on the footprint of what used to be an interurban trolley line. The greenway includes a low-stress bike route along Fremont Avenue, which is a residential street through much of North Seattle, and the old right-of-way for the interurban line, which starts at 110th and runs up to around 200th Street in Shoreline. What's amazing here is along Linden Avenue between 130th and 145th, within the Bitter Lake urban village, there's more housing density than there is basically along all of Aurora through the entirety of North Seattle. So somehow, as a city, we've made it more attractive to have bike-oriented development along a relatively quiet street than we have transit-oriented development along one of the most productive transit streets in the city. Don't get me wrong, I love bike-oriented development, but I really think it illustrates how much we've failed the Aurora corridor in the last several decades when it feels like we should have known better. As sort of a final contrast, let's look at where the interurban trail crosses into Shoreline and where it intersects Aurora Avenue up around 155th Street. The trail has a bit of a different feel once you get north of 145th, and you can see new housing density that's getting constructed where there's an old Sears building and a shopping center that's in transition. Even Aurora itself has a bit of a different character here with actual sidewalks and a planted median. It's still not beautiful, but it definitely has a different feel from a lot of what you see within Seattle. City limits. Okay, I'm gonna get to the really good part of this, which is what makes changing a road like this so hard in the first place, but also how advocacy, politics, and funding seem to finally be coalescing around a vision for a safer, more livable street. First though, a quick reminder to drop a like on the video and subscribe if you're enjoying. And if you like seeing me get out to different cities and covering what makes them unique, the Patreon is great for that. Sub count check. The channel now has enough subscribers to fill Old Trafford, home ground of Manchester United, once upon a time the most valuable sports brand on the planet, and now I don't even think they're the most valuable in their own city. Kind of a disaster. Okay, let's get into a bit of theory. It's no accident that the roads I've covered on this channel, Charleston Boulevard and St. Rose Parkway in the Las Vegas Valley, and now Aurora Avenue in Seattle, are all current or former state highways. These are all roadways that were designed and built long ago as high mobility, limited access corridors before the feds began to roll out the national interstate system in the Eisenhower era, and often before cities began to urbanize around them. In our defense, we just didn't know better. A street like Aurora developed over time, long before we had any sense that there should be a distinction between a limited access highway and an urban main street. And this is the thing, even though the opening of I-5 in the 1960s should have enabled Aurora to take on a completely different function and urban character, significant funding has never really been committed to actually retrofitting it appropriately. It's expensive and politically difficult to transform this big of a facility in a wholesale way. But this really comes back to the very definition of a strode. It was conceived and built as one thing, and we've tried to shoehorn it into a completely different function, even though the design is totally incompatible. So what's different in 2022? Well, a lot of things. Say what you want about Vision Zero, but there's a lot more transparency and awareness about where crashes happen and who's getting injured and killed than there used to be. I'm too lazy to do my own data analysis, but this article in The Urbanist, highly recommended, says that between 2015 and 2019, Aurora was the location of 17% of the traffic fatalities that took place in the entire city. And that is just mind-blowing. We're also in a time where housing affordability in a city like Seattle is at crisis levels, and a lot of advocacy has developed around fostering a safer, more multimodal transportation system that can support the housing density we need. Aurora has become a bit of a bellwether for that discussion. Enter the Aurora Reimagined Coalition, which has brought together a variety of community groups that are advocating for a safer and more livable Aurora Avenue. The coalition has really helped build awareness and support for changes on Aurora, and I do love the branding they've come up with, although to be fair, this probably underestimates the actual number of problems on Aurora by at least an order of magnitude. I do encourage you to check out their website, which I'll link in the description. If you live in the Seattle area, consider getting involved, and if you live somewhere else, take a look and think about what you might be able to take away as far as building local capacity to reimagine roads in your own city. Anyway, when you build community support,
Somebody tell me why this was never in any of Meta's presentations. How is me putting a phone camera in the Quest Pro headset the most compelling demo of VR I've seen in like the last 5 years? But I have some hot takes on this whole metaverse thing that I kept to myself for a little while, but I think it's finally time to share them, so buckle up. Let's get into it. So Meta's stock is down over 60% this year. Facebook's growth has flatlined, and their CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, has doubled down on this commitment to the whole metaverse thing, which they've continued to pour tons and tons of money into. It's like, what is going on here? But let's just zoom out a second and start with some definitions. VR is virtual reality, which is, putting the headset on and being completely immersed in a new virtual world. AR is augmented reality, which is overlaying virtual things on top of the real world. I'm gonna use that a lot in this video. Those two things, though, are both particularly hard to demo. You kind of have to try it and use it to actually understand and appreciate it. So I know there's a lot of curiosity about VR, especially lately, and it can be kind of hard to tell if it's like just another trend in tech, like 3D TVs, whatever happened to those, or if it's actually the future that we'll all be living in, like Ready Player One, or maybe more like WALL-E. Hard to tell. Either way, there's basically one visible mega company that's clearly pushing all their chips in on this definitely being our future, and that's Meta, formerly known as Facebook, with their CEO, Mark Zuckerberg. This guy right here. And he explained to me many times that they really believe in this metaverse thing, and he showed me all this Quest Pro stuff right before it was announced on stage, so I got to form my opinions on it before the slightly more cringeworthy presentation version we've all seen. The metaverse might have a pretty terrible reputation already, but let's try to take a step back, look at it objectively like a piece of tech, shall we? So like I said, VR is one of those things you kind of have to try to understand and appreciate, but also the spectrum of how much people care about the metaverse is hilarious, like all the way from not caring at all and never having tried VR in their life, all the way to like serious believers, like companies hiring a chief metaverse officer and the metaverse being in every headline, and just like a weird obsession with it. So it can be kind of hard to give a single answer to this, but I actually think it's pretty simple. The internet, as we have it right now, is mostly controlled by two things: ads and devices. So if you control the ads, then you're the one connecting people to the things that they buy. That's basically what Google does. Like Google's job is to know everything they possibly can about people and then show them ads for things, not just on Google search results, but all over the internet with Google AdWords. Pretty much every company in the world who does online advertising pays Google to do it for them. So for as much as we talk about like the Pixel and Google Chrome and Android on this channel, Google is at its core an ads business. And then if you control the devices people use, then you very much have control over what makes it to people's eyeballs. Facebook has wanted to make a popular device, but they don't make one. Trust me, they've tried. But now, in 2022, as popular as Facebook is, they have clearly saturated the market. They've peaked. They've begun their inevitable, very slow decline, and so they've made their bazillions of dollars. But now, with things like the iPhone adding that Ask App Not to Track button, that took a multi-billion-dollar chunk out of Facebook's ads business. Didn't really hurt Google as much because people still go to Google.com and type in a box what they're looking for. Google still knows a lot about people. So bottom line is Facebook is accepting that L. They dominated the early parts of the internet, and that was great. But now the slow decline has begun, and they're moving on to the next big thing. And if you could look all around at all the technologies that could maybe be the next big thing, that one thing that keeps bubbling back up to the surface has been VR and AR. And so Facebook, Meta, can control as much of this VR future as possible, the software, the hardware, the ads, the things that make it people's eyeballs, then they will regain the control and the money that they're after. So cue them rebranding themselves to Meta and pouring billions and billions of dollars into that exact mission. Okay, so this might be kind of a hot take, but the Meta Quest Pro, this headset, is $1,500, and I'll explain the thinking behind that in a second, but it is actually pretty good. It's a pretty good, technologically speaking, a pretty good headset. It is much more comfortable than a lot of others I've tried, so they've split the components now between the displays and lenses in the front, and speakers and buttons through the middle, and then the battery at the back. It is lighter than it looks, but I think it's more about the balance and the weight. Here you can see, it feels like the balance point is right in the middle there, which is better, but then you put it on and you look like this. Here you go. Boom. And without the blockers on the side, there is a little bit of a gap, and you do have peripheral vision light coming in from the sides and not the top. Inside, there's a custom Snapdragon XR2 Plus processor, 256 gigs of storage, 12 gigs of RAM, and then a slimmer set of displays and lenses, and then the screens inside are giving you 1920 by 1800 per eye at up to 90 FPS. can do this decent full color pass through with the 10 sensors and cameras scattered around the outside. It's not the best pass through I've ever seen, but it does work and it lets you feel like you're in a normal environment. Plus, there's these new Touch Pro controllers, which have cameras and sensors of their own, and they all charge on a single dock through some pins, which we'll be doing often because sadly the headset does just have like a 1.5 hour battery life when unplugged. But then there's also a suite of sensors on the inside facing your eyes, facing your face for face tracking. Okay, right now I'm looking at an alien face. But a little bit more interesting than that is the alien face is in real time showing what the headset sees my face doing. And so every expression that I make, every little facial movement, the eye movements, it's kind of a lot of the little things too, like the little muscles on your face that move when you talk and you make little micro expressions. So if I was in a virtual world and trying to convey emotions to another person, then they would see everything. That's pretty cool. VR and AR both work pretty well through this headset, but at the end of the day, it still is a pretty chunky, it's a pretty big headset. It doesn't fold down either, so if you want to travel with it, you need like a bag or a backpack. This version might not be tempting to you. Zuckerberg keeps telling me, people buy a new $2,000 machine as their desktop computer all the time, and this is maybe a replacement for that someday. But this might not be tempting to you. But theoretically, in a couple of years, a new version of it is much, much smaller, closer to like a regular pair of glasses. And then even further down the road, another version is even smaller, maybe lightweight like Google Glass used to be back in the day. And then eventually, it's an incredible, actually portable piece of tech. And so, theoretically, if you pour enough money and talent into something, it can become amazing. Which leads me to my next point. This is the real question here. Every time I see a new VR headset pop up, whether it's this like Pico Pro headset or the Meta Quest Pro or anything like that, the question is always like, is this VR thing really actually going to be the future? Like, it's cool with tech and it works and everything, but are we actually going to be spending meaningful time in VR at some point? And the answer, of course, depends on who you ask, obviously. I feel like I've noticed the younger the person is that you talk to, the more likely they are to want to give VR a chance or to try it more often. But if you ask Meta, if you ask anyone in leadership at Meta, the answer is yes, absolutely 100%. This is the future that we're all going to be living in, using VR all the time. Metaverse for sure. Now, of course, they have to believe in that because the whole company is a huge ship barreling in that exact direction. But also watching the presentation of everything at the Meta Connect keynote, as miserable and awkward as it was, the more you watch, the more it kind of crystallizes their whole plan for me. Basically, step one, think of all the things people normally do on the internet. Step two, make those things in VR and then pour tons of money into them. And then that's kind of the whole plan. If you get the time and you actually get to watch through that presentation, it happens over and over again, where basically they realize that people do certain things in real life, and then they want to bring that thing into VR. Oh, you'd like to do this? Here's a VR version. Oh, you do this other thing? Here's a VR version. Over and over again. And ideally, for them anyway, convincing people to use the VR version just will become a matter of making the VR version really, really good. Hopefully, better than the real life version. And that's where I think my hot take comes in, which is that some of these VR applications are actually scary good and starting to look better than the non-VR version. And for Meta, if they can get enough of these things to be real, then they'll be making this metaverse thing happen.
Gretchen, stop trying to make
Metaverse.
this happen. It's not going to happen.
Okay, so some are easier than others, right? Gaming, yeah, we've got some good games already in VR. Now, we gotta work on getting more, like a better variety of games, better fidelity, etc., more immersion. And pouring money into this ecosystem will entice developers to rapidly improve games and make better games, which is awesome. But there's more to life than just games. What else do people do all day in 2022? Zoom calls? Okay, perfect. Yes, they've got Zoom calls, but better. They've built an entire virtual meeting room experience where you can do video conferencing in VR with other people. So, some of your friends or coworkers don't have VR headsets, that's fine. They'll show up as a floating video feed in the metaverse. But now with a bunch of people in meetings, you can talk to the people around you, you can do breakout meeting rooms instantly, really good immersive presentations, etc. Now, currently, as you can tell, these are all using these avatars. And these, I think, are bad. They're pretty cringy. I mean, you can customize them, of course, with a bunch of different things, different hair and features and outfits and piercings, etc., which is kind of neat, sure, but you still end up feeling like a metaverse meeting is just a bunch of Mii characters from Nintendo Wii. But it's very much a stopgap because we also saw that Meta announced this live avatar demo that looked absolutely wild to me. You can essentially use your phone to take a scan of yourself, and then the headset takes that and puts a photorealistic version of you into the virtual environment, complete with that face tracking and eye tracking and everything that we talked about before. That is super next level. So you can imagine now, instead of just a Zoom call with coworkers, a really good meeting is a bunch of people from all over the world all in one room with all the advantages of the eye contact and relative audio positioning and being able to like lean over to the person next to you and say something really quietly just to them. All this is stuff that you can't really do in a Zoom call. And so just replace these weird avatars with the hyper realistic ones and they might be onto something. But that's just meetings. That's not even that much time. What else do people do? Maybe they just work remotely, period. Sure, okay, then they'll build this whole metaverse, this whole virtual office building for people to work in. So if they work all over the world in different countries, they can all collaborate in the same spaces. But even the first thing I showed in this video, which is just simply working on your computer, which is a thing that many people do for many hours a day. And the Quest Pro has native Mac support that let me project my Mac screen onto these multiple huge virtual screens. So you can take a huge triple monitor setup wherever you go, basically. You can just take this headset with you and do way more with fairly high resolution that can, again, get better with time and more money. They've poured money into Microsoft to bring Office 365 and Word and Excel and everything into workrooms natively. They've poured money into Accenture to give them like thousands and thousands of VR headsets to get those people to use the metaverse to work virtually all the time. Basically, Meta can and will dump a ton of money into this because that's all they're doing right now. There's like a common trope that like if you want to make a bunch of money as a startup right now, just make a virtual reality tech startup in some way, and you will eventually level up enough to just get acquired by Meta. It's no wonder chief metaverse officers became a thing. That became a way to like make it seem like you might get acquired by Meta. But that brings us to the last thing. There's only one problem that I have with all this, which is that one company controlling the entire foundation of this second generation internet, if you want to call it that, this metaverse, is a terrible idea. So this comes down to Meta wanting as much control over this future as possible. Facebook was built on someone else's foundation. They want to build the next foundation and then be the ones responsible for everything that grows up on top of it. The workrooms, the games, the experiences, everything. So they're pretty visibly pouring as much money into it now as possible to get as far ahead as possible. Now, plenty of other companies are developing and making really cool VR stuff now along those same lines, don't get me wrong. There's the Pico headset I just showed you. There are stuff from Google, stuff from, I think we all expect in the next year or so, Apple to finally unveil their VR headset, which I think will make Meta a little bit nervous because Apple will for sure make sure that's the best one for iPhone users. But Meta has already, made so many connections and built so many technologies and bought up so many VR companies and VR studios that it sucks, but it's like, if there's any company that can be positioned to bring this technology over the hump to make it a thing, then it's Meta. But the downside of that one, especially this company, having possibly that much control over people and over the future of the internet, and possibly doing crazy things like using eye tracking to make sure you see certain ads, is way too much for me to want to root for it at all. I've said before, but when companies truly compete, that is actually when we win. When there's actually real incentive to get better,
We all have ideas about what car-centric America looks like. Stroads, freeways, big box stores. And we might think we know which cities are the biggest offenders, but today I'm going to use data to figure it all out and shame the worst of the worst. It's the 10 most car-centric US cities, and it's coming up next. This is City Nerd, weekly content on cities and transportation. Viewer-suggested topics, always more than welcome, and I do stash these away and ponder them for months. I actually got this one from viewer David Hu over 9 months ago on one of my Q&A videos. Can we do a video of highway length per capita of major metropolitan areas? If we can combine those data with public transport ridership, there might be some interesting outcomes. By the way, I'm still doing the occasional Q&A video, I'm just making them patron only for now. So I did like this idea for a video, and what it kind of morphed into was bringing together different data sources to figure out what the most car-centric cities in America are. I'll get to what those data sources are and how I use them, but first, kind of a who cares piece. The thesis of this video is that car dependency is a vicious cycle, in particular for the cities on this list, but this is a problem everywhere in the US. It's hard to say which of these elements comes first, but they all feed into each other. Your city, or probably the state DOT, builds and widens highways. People are induced to buy more cars, or your city attracts the kind of people who like to drive a lot. Either way, there's more driving, so now you've created a constituency for more roadway capacity projects, and the elected officials respond to that constituency by building more lanes. The thing that breaks this cycle is really not just one thing, it's good research, good activism, good political leadership. Those things can create a virtuous cycle, but the cities we're talking about today, unfortunately, have not really managed to change direction. The data we're going to look at today includes both the producer side and the consumer side of this equation, so we can sort of view this cycle from different angles. A couple data sources for the supply side. One, I'm using the National Transit Database, and I'm using the same transit supply metric that I created for the Undervalued Cities video. The other source is FHWA Highway Statistics Table HM72, and I'm using its estimates of roadway miles per capita and freeway lane miles per capita for each urbanized area. The idea here is that not only do more roadway miles probably induce more people to drive, but it means the city is using more land area that could have been devoted to something more useful. And then on the consumption side, I'm using vehicle miles traveled per capita from the same table. And then I'm getting into census data today, which I think I've not done before on this channel for whatever reason. I'll be using table S0801, commuting characteristics by sex, from the American Community Survey 5-year data set ending in 2020. If you aren't familiar with the ACS, it's more detailed than the decennial census you might be more familiar with. Anyway, S0801 looks at workers 16 years old and up, how they typically get to work, how many vehicles are available to them, and a few other things. So for this, I'm using the percent commuting by car for each metro area, and I also looked at car availability. The census categorizes this by whether a worker has access to 0, 1, 2, or 3 plus cars. I used this to create a car light index where I give full credit for the proportion of people with 0 cars and half credit for the proportion with 1 car. Okay, that's the data, and just to be clear, I'm doing this by metropolitan statistical area for the usual reason.
With my strategy, we can't lose. Just pay attention and follow my...
Oh, you're just the same as I used to know. Always playing games in the strangest ways. And you come and go, 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 just like before. Oh, I should have known. Oh, you're just the same as I used to know. Always playing games in the strangest ways. And you come and go, 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 just like before. Oh, I should have known. I should have known. You reminded me of love. Just walking down that road. It's in the blood and woe. And it's just like an old friend coming up, yeah, I know them. Dropped up in the driveway, locked up cause it's stolen. Not looking for problems, one look and I'm all in. It's late in the morning, if I fall down then I can keep crawling. And it's just like an old friend coming up, yeah, I know them. You're just the same as I used to know. Always playing games in the strangest ways. Oh, you come and go, 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 just like before. I should have known. I should have known. You reminded me of love. Just walking down that road. It's in the blood and woe. And it's just like a old friend coming up, yeah, I know them. 'Cause I swear I'm trying to make amends. Forget the years I haven't been, and we can ride around again like before, making up our own laws. I got a couple old friends, yeah. And it's just like an old friend coming up, yeah, I know them. Locked up in the driveway, locked up 'cause it's stolen. I'll be looking for problems, one looking, I'm rolling. It's late in the morning, if I fall down then I can keep calling. And it's just like an old friend coming up, yeah, I know them. Locked up in the driveway, locked up 'cause it's stolen. I'll be looking for problems, one looking, I'm rolling. It's late in the morning, if I fall down then I can keep calling.
You thought I wouldn't come around to you, round to you. You know I was down for you, down for you. Now I'm wishing that I never bowed to you, bowed to you. I'm in this shit I can't get out of. I'm not proud of, hate the sound of all these songs about you, songs about you. You know I was wrong about you, wrong about you. Let you hold on to this cash, let you hold on to. I'm in this shit I can't get out of. I ain't proud of. I'm running out of time to hold you close, running out of time to be your man. Yeah, I'm just lost in the moment. Yeah, I'm just zoning. I'm running out of time to hold you down, running out of time to be your man. Yeah, I'm just lost in this moment. Yeah, I've been zoning. You know that I could get you more, a little more. Whatever you need, what you need. I could get you more, a little more. Whatever you need. Thought I wouldn't come around to you, round to you. You know I was down for you, down for you. Now I'm wishing that I never bowed to you, bowed to you. I'm in this shit I can't get out of. I'm not proud of, hate the sound of all these songs about you, songs about you. You know I was wrong about you, wrong about you. Let you hold on to this cash, let you hold on to. I'm in this shit I can't get out of. I ain't proud of. I'm running out of time to hold you close, running out of time to be your man. Yeah, I'm just lost in the moment. Yeah, I'm just zoning. I'm running out of time to hold you down, running out of time to be your man. Yeah, I'm just lost in this moment. Yeah, I've been zoning. You know that I could get you more, a little more. Whatever you need, what you need. I could get you more, a little more. Whatever you need.
When I'm furthest from myself, feeling closer to the stars, I've been invaded by the dark, trying to recognize myself when I feel I've been replaced. When I'm furthest from myself, feeling closer to the stars, I've been invaded by the dark, trying to recognize myself when I feel I've been replaced. But I can feel it kick down in my soul, and it's pulling me back to earth. Let me know I am not a slave, can't be contained. So pick me from the dark and pull me from the grave. 'Cause I still feel alive. It is hopeless. I start to notice that I still feel alive. Falling forward, back into orbit. Yeah. So when I lose my gravity, this sleepy wound, drifting as I dream, I'll wake up soon to realize that soul. It's pulling me back to earth, let me go. And this heart that beats inside of me will show. Floating in outer space, have I misplaced a part of my soul? Lost in the in-between, or so it seems I'm out of control. Floating in outer space, have I misplaced a part of my soul? Lost in the in-between, but it can't keep me asleep for long, 'cause I still feel alive. It is hopeless. I start to notice that I still feel alive. Moving forward, back into open. I still feel alive. It is hopeless. I start to notice that I still feel alive. Moving forward, back into open.
I'm like, fuck love, fuck life. I'm a fool for you all day, all night. You said that you could do better, why don't you try? Never mind how I feel, it's alright. Yeah, and everything that I love is bad for me and it sucks. I know I can't make you care, I swear you're so good at making me feel bad, and making me feel terrible about myself. Good, you're so good at making others hurt. With only just your words, with only just your words, and I feel bad. I don't feel good. And I feel bad. Don't feel good. I don't feel. I swear that you're so good at making me feel bad. You're like a college grad that majored in the art of fucking over everything we had. I wanna rip these pictures off the wall and paint them all in black. My favorite memories of us are ones I wish we never had. And everything that I love is bad for me and it sucks. I know I can't make you care, I swear you're so good at making me feel bad, and making me feel terrible about myself. Good, you're so good at making others hurt. With only just your words, with only just your words, and I feel bad. I don't feel good. And I feel bad. Don't feel good. I don't feel. And I know.
me safe, now you tear me down. Am I late to waste now that you're not around? Come and leave your mark, vandalize my heart. Fuck the pain away, my bed is in ruins. Need you in my veins, don't know how you do it. Come and leave your mark, vandalize my heart. Did we make a work of art just so you could deface it? Did you let it fall apart just so you could replace it? Have your name on the side of a burning bridge? Watch it fade when the smoke rolls in. Time that you killed, you promised to help me rebuild. Feels like you planned it, took us for granted. Oh, said you'd keep me safe, now you tear me down. Am I late to waste now that you're not around? Come and leave your mark, vandalize my heart. Fuck the pain away, my bed is in ruins. Need you in my veins, don't know how you do it. Come and leave your mark, vandalize my heart. You're fucking crazy, hate me, love you, breaking bottles on the pavement just to watch it crash. Said you'd keep me safe, now you're tearing me down. Am I late to waste now that you're not around? Come and leave your mark, vandalize my heart. Fuck the pain away, my bed is in ruins. Need you in my veins, don't know how you do it. Come and leave your mark, vandalize my heart. You keep me safe, now you tear me down. Am I late to waste now that you're not around? Come and leave your mark, vandalize my heart.
Don't you want somebody to never let you go? Knowing someone's body better than your own. Don't you want a family with a white picket fence? Tell me when's the wedding, the names of all your kids. I'm not missing someone that I've never met. Maybe a little scared, still I don't care. I'm not missing out, so don't ask me again. Thanks for your concern, but here's the thing. Never been in love, and it's all good. Not the only one feeling like this shit. Maybe one day, someday, but no, I ain't in a rush. I say whatever, don't care that I've never, no, never been in love. I say whatever, don't care that I've never, no, never been in love. You can have your romance, go on a perfect date, but for me, there just ain't enough hours in the day. And I don't need to rain on your happiness, but I'm alone with no loneliness. Never been in love, and it's all good. Not the only one feeling like this shit. Maybe one day, someday, but no, I ain't in a rush. I say whatever to get that I've never, no, never been in love. Never been in love, never been in love, never been in love. I say whatever to get that I've never, no, never been in love. Never been in love, never been in love, never been in love. I say whatever to get that I've never, no, never been in love. I'm not missing someone that I've never met. No, 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 no. Maybe a little scared, still I don't care. I'm not missing out, so don't ask me again. Thanks for your concern, but here's the thing. Never been in love, and it's all good. Not the only one, not the only one that like this shit. Maybe one day, someday, but no, I ain't in
This is why I can't have nice things, 'cause I break them, but I'll take them for granted. Yeah. The second I tell you how I feel, I get anxious, and I don't understand it. Can't you see I'm trying? Oh, but every time I blame it on the timing. I know it's a lie, but we've been lying closer. I've been getting colder. It's already over in my mind. Maybe that's why I only buy cheap sunglasses, 'cause I know that I'll lose them sooner or later. Or lately I can't keep anything, can't keep you. I only buy cheap sunglasses, 'cause I know that I'll lose them sooner or later. Oh baby, I can't keep anything, can't keep you. This is why I can't have nice things, 'cause I question every blessing in my life. Ooh, the second I put my heart out, yeah, even just a little bit, yeah, I know you walk all over it. Can't you see I'm trying? Oh, but every time I blame it on the timing. I know it's a lie, but we've been lying closer. I've been getting colder. It's already over in my mind. Maybe that's why I only buy cheap sunglasses, 'cause I know that I'll lose them sooner or later. Or lately I can't keep anything, can't keep you. I only buy cheap sunglasses, 'cause I know that I'll lose them sooner or later. Oh baby, I can't keep anything, can't keep you.
I find city boundaries to be a bit arbitrary for the reasons I talked about in my crime video. Fuller discussion there if you need it. And I did calculate all this for every metro area over 250,000, but the resulting list was kind of boring, so I'm just going with 1 million and up. Fair warning, we're gonna be looking at a lot of very bad things today, but when we get to the honorable mentions, I'm gonna look at the 10 cities that fared the best by this criteria. So that's what we're doing, and let's just get into it. Number 10 is Charlotte, North Carolina. This is a city of contradictions. It topped my list of unexpectedly walkable neighborhoods. It's got one of the better situated NFL stadiums with decent light rail access. But despite having the beginnings of a useful transit network and some walkable central neighborhoods, the census numbers are pretty bad. 87% of people in the region use a car as their primary means of getting to work, and it's only 1% each for transit and walking. Just to give you a baseline, here's how the Charlotte metro area's ACS numbers stack up against the national numbers, which include everything: small towns, rural areas. So it's not great, and be warned, it just gets worse from here. Number 9 is the Inland Empire, which the US government in its infinite wisdom has determined to be a separate metro area from LA. So let's take that at face value. On its own, it's the 12th largest metro area in the US, bigger than San Francisco, Oakland, Seattle, Tacoma, or Minneapolis, St. Paul. Well, the Inland Empire has 2 central cities as well, San Bernardino and Riverside, and this is what the downtown of those 2 cities look like, which probably explains why the Inland Empire is on this list. Well, besides the fact that it featured in both my ginormous interchanges and my terrible transit videos. The